well-known, well-identified, well-funded priority areas, then you're able to feel and see an impact. And in the next succeeding administration, those priorities can change, but they will not undo the successes and the impact of the previous one. So this is what government is doing right now, and it's an approach which I think is working quite well compared to what there was before. So the big four agendas, just to remind you, is affordable housing, a big hairy goal, 500,000 new affordable homes per year. Universal healthcare, we all want to be able to get quality medical healthcare anywhere in this country. And the reason why this is important is that even if you have medical insurance organized in America or Europe or South Africa, and you're in a car accident somewhere in Kavoloni or somewhere in Veruga, what will help you and what will save your life is the first half hour of what happens to you there before your helicopters and AMREF and other people can come finding you. So it is in all our interest to make sure that we have good quality healthcare everywhere in this country, because you never know where you are and where you need emergency assistance, whatever your status in life and whatever private arrangements you have. Manufacturing, we want to move it from contributing measly 7%, around 7 to 8% right now, to 15% of GDP. And this, I think, is the crux of this conference we're having today. And finally, food security. A well-known Kenyan saying is, whatever else is happening, kula kwanza, eat first, and then you find energy to do other things. So industrialization, what does that mean today? I don't intend to read every line here, but to industrialize is essentially to move from peasant farming agrarian activities and move to production of things and products which other people need. So we are looking to industrialize. When you say you want to industrialize, it means that you need to create small factories everywhere. Small factories everywhere. In an ideal situation, industrialization today, because of globalization, everything comes from China nowadays. Everything is made in China and comes from China. Your Apple phone in your hand today may say designed in California. They say designed in California, but it is made or assembled in China for very, very many various reasons. So industrialization is something which we need to look at seriously as a key driver, not only of providing employment and strengthening our economy, but also to become competitive, because we cannot compete on everything. For example, if you go to a desert country like Saudi Arabia or United Arab Emirates, you can have a ski mall in a mall. You can have skiing in a mall, but you cannot have skiing outside because their weather doesn't allow that. So they will compete on the things they can compete on. Come to a country like Kenya, what is our competitive advantage here? And you find that we have 85% of Kenyans being self-employed in one way or another between agriculture and light industry. So we already have a manufacturing base in Kenya. Kenyans have, over the years since independence, gradually drifted into whatever they can do, because the formal employment sector cannot absorb all of us or even enough of us to make a difference. So we are out there in our small Juakali sheds, doing welding, being electricians, being plumbing, but we are not quite producing the things we need to produce. And this is what we need to think about. The world is dynamic, as we all know. Excuse me. The world is dynamic, as we all know, and the current pace of technological development is stressing everybody. Right now, I'm sitting talking to you in Mombasa, you're in Karatina, and I'm sure we have many participants all over the country and maybe even from abroad. 2 years ago, very few of us had ever heard of Zoom or Microsoft Teams or any of these online collaborative platforms we are now using and which we are taking for granted just 2 years ago. In fact, by the time Kenya was locking down on March 2nd last year, 2020, very few of us knew about Zoom, even then. It is only in the last 1 year or so that we have all realized that we don't have to wake up and go to the office to meet. We can meet wherever we are. We save time and costs, etc. So the world is changing, and it is changing at a blindingly fast pace. The example of this meeting we're having today on Zoom or Microsoft Teams or whatever platform we are on is the best example of what we are saying. And coming out of the collaborative meeting space, you find that the world itself is moving to automation and to artificial intelligence and algorithms. These are the things which are running everything in tomorrow's future. The online environment, of course, has led to very many innovations because people need to get together. And what we cannot avoid, or what we must reckon with, is technology. Technology is here to stay, and you either bend with the wind and ride the wind, or it will break us, or it will break you. So we have no choice but to realize we're in a very dynamic environment where everything is changing at lightning fast speed, and we have to be on our toes all the time to make sure that we're not left by the bus. Give you a case study of Morocco. Morocco is a small dry country on the northwest tip of Africa. I remember the first time I went to Morocco, there was a big sign at the airport, King Mohammed VI, I think, or the 5th airport, saying, "Welcome to our African friends." And I thought it was ironic because they clearly did not see themselves as African, probably Africa by accident of geography, but they are in Africa very much, but their mentality is completely European and completely Western. And that is why you find at the airport in an African country in Africa, you find a sign saying, "Welcome to our African friends." What did Morocco do? Morocco is dry. It has nothing to speak of. It has a highland mountain called the Atlas Mountains, a range of mountains called the Atlas Mountains, and little else. So what Morocco did is said, okay, what is our competitive advantage? And the competitive advantage, of course, is tourism. They are 3-4 hours away from mainstream Europe. So it's a nice place for people to get a cheap getaway from in the cold countries of the north. But look at them. They are also into agriculture, auto parts, and textiles. And that's what they concentrate on. And they have done a few things which we have tried to ape here and there as well, which we copy, special economic zones, liberalizing trade, free trade agreements, etc., and a very good world-class infrastructure. Some of these things are unavoidable. You're not going to develop without world-class infrastructure. In roads, to serve internal movement, in ports, to serve your export and import trade, and in IT, to give you a technological backbone as a springboard for development and success. So Morocco has managed to multiply its GDP by 2.5 times in the time we've been running Kenya Vision 2030, because as a smaller country and its proximity and its geographical location, they have leveraged on their strengths to multiply their GDP by 2.5 times. Current status in Kenya, we have 67% of manufacturing firms in Kenya being micro and small medium enterprises. Micro and small medium enterprises. And all of us know who I'm talking about. Personally, the man who fixes my welding jobs is called Mbogo. Mbogo is a fantastic welder, but Mbogo is completely disorganized as a business unit. If you pay Mbogo too much money in advance to do a job for you, he will consume the money doing other things, and you will struggle to get him to deliver on his contract. And this is a challenge, and I'm sure all of you have similar stories to give with your plumbers, with the people who jenga for you, your mjengos, with the people you contract to provide services to you. We know they have the skills, but they need help to become corporate and to organize themselves into a manufacturing unit, which has some systems and some processes. And this is the critical gap I would like this conference to begin focusing on, even as I make my presentation, that we have the base there, we have the people there, we have the skills there. What is missing is the magic question, it's a $1 million question here. What is missing? When you go to Gikomba, there's a system that works. The people who provide the boxes we bought to go to high school, called coffins, they are there. They have been there for the last 40 years. They have managed to organize that thing completely. They understand that business. The ones who do karais, the ones who do cooking pans, the ones who manufacture other things, they are all perfect and they know what they're doing. Kariobangi Light Industries in Nairobi, for example. If you go to Kariobangi Light Industries, you'll find that there's serious activity going on there by very well trained people with a lot of experience in the industry. So what we are lacking right now is an answer of how to parlay what exactly exists, what exists on the ground right now, and magnify it to become national. How can you replicate Kariobangi light industries in Karatina, for example? How can you replicate Kariobangi light industries in Skuta, in Nyeri? How can you replicate Kariobangi light industries in Kongowea, in Mombasa, for example, or in Busia town, or in Kisumu, or somewhere else in this country, or in Garissa, or in Moyale? This is what I would hope that a conference like this is able to give us, because the combined IQ in the conference room today, I think, is enough to solve the world's problems in half an hour. So I'll be challenging the meeting to please help us to figure out what is a silver bullet which is missing here. Because at the government level, we do the big things. We do special economic zones. We invite foreign direct investment. We give tax breaks because we're trying to get investors to come, put in their money into the country and provide employment to our citizens. We also need to look at our own citizens themselves and their industries and see how we can promote their industries to become big. And this is the challenge which we are currently grappling with, and which we hope this is a very important conference you're in today, webinar, will be able to give answers to. So as you can see on the slide, 83% of manufacturers are semi-automated, 11% are fully automated, and 6% of producers operate on fully manual systems. And we have stagnated on manufacturing contribution to the economy in Kenya at about 11%. We hope in the next 9 years to drive it to 20%. Unlocking industrialization. Like I've said, we need to move and increase we need to increase our manufacturing base from 11% to 20% of GDP. And we are planning to do this by addressing 3 critical issues. The first one is to increase foreign direct investment. And this is by making it easy for foreign capital to find its way to Kenya. One of the things we have to do is to address the cost of power, the cost of electricity. And this is a presidential level concern, which is being dealt with at the highest levels. And I'm very, very confident that very, very soon, we are going to start seeing power costs for industry in this country, comparing with the other countries we are competing with, the likes of Egypt and South Africa. Reducing the cost of doing business by removing friction points and what are called rent collection points in the bureaucracy. We want to minimize contact between the citizen and the product he is looking for, or the service he's looking for. And we want to remove, to the full extent possible, all public servants and civil servants who used to be in that chain. It used to be to import something through the port of Mombasa, you needed to get 49 licenses. 49 licenses, all in different parts of Mombasa. So license 1 is required, license 1, 2, and 3, you're given in the port. License 4 is in Changamwe, license 5 is in Jomuvu, license 6 is in Kefis headquarters, license 7 is back in the port, license 8 is outside the port again, and you have to go sequentially. Complete nonsense situation, which would drive people mad and increase red tape. And of course, you know, everywhere you have to go and deal with a human being, you're interfacing with a potential problem. So government is automating furiously across everywhere. We are automating. e-Citizen, I'm sure, is familiar to all of you. And I'm sure many in this room remember days when you'd go to electricity house to queue to pay an electricity bill. Days when you'd go to Kampala Road in industrial area to try and sort out or to get a new water meter. Days when you'd go to town and spend money in the bus and spend hours queuing to renew a passport or to renew an ID. All this is now done online. And these are the big, big changes with economic impact and social impact, which we are currently enjoying and which are fruits of Kenya Vision 2030. Most people don't realize. At this point, I think it's important to mention in passing that Kenya Vision 2030 is not an event which will happen. We will not, on the 31st of December in the year 2030, have fireworks and then we usher in a new golden era of life under Kenya Vision 2030. No, it will not be an event. It is a process, and it is a process which is happening every single day as we watch. Those of you who live and work in Nairobi can see the changes to the face of Nairobi as we watch today in the year 2021. That new expressway has completely changed the way Nairobi will look forever. In fact, we'll all be nostalgic for the photographs of the before, then you can compare with the after. Today, nobody remembers when Jogoo Road in Nairobi was a single carriageway. Today, nobody remembers when Langata Road was a single carriageway. Today, nobody remembers when Ngong Road, all the way from City Mortuary, was a single carriageway. So these are the small changes which are happening every day, and we are achieving the vision slowly by slowly, as best as we can in view of our limited finances. And then we also want to improve the ease of doing business. I've mentioned that. And we want to invest in and develop in specific sectors where we have natural competitive advantage. Kenya is blessed. We have a very well-educated population, very well-educated. In most parts of this country, if not in all of them, anybody who is 60 years and below is guaranteed to understand English and Swahili, as well as their own vernacular language. When you get to the age bracket 60 to 70, you will find the statistics are also very, very high, because these are now the people who are in their prime in the 80s. People who are in their prime in the 80s were educated. So Kenya has a very, very well-educated population. We have a good climate, we have arable land, and we have a mobile, innovative population. We have all the building blocks. We have tourism and agriculture, and we also have a very strong IT sector or industry. And in fact, it's not for nothing that we are known as Africa's Silicon Savannah. Key trends to take advantage of. There's $100 billion worth of planned infrastructure investment in the next few years. And we are dealing with extensive road and railway network, airports, the modern seaport of Mombasa, modernizing it further, and also establishing a new port at Lamu to increase our options as a country, and expanding energy sector and ICT. And we are laying these foundations for a reason I think I want to spend 1 minute to explain. Many times you hear the complaint that we are spending too much money, these roads are costing too much money, these bridges are costing too much money, SGR is costing too much money. The flip side is very simple. What would you rather we did? Because if we do not invest in a serious road infrastructure, we're not assisting this country and its efficiency. If we do not invest in ports, the port of Lamu, for example, and improving the port of Mombasa, that will not stop Tanzania from developing the port of Mtwara, the port of Dar es Salaam, the port of Tanga, and the port of Bagamoyo, which are all ports in the plans right now. So Tanzania is planning to put 4 ports, and Tanzania has a straighter route from Dar es Salaam to Rwanda, Burundi, and Eastern DRC, as well as currently serving Zambia and Malawi and even Zimbabwe and Northern Kenya. So a lot of these things we do to maintain our competitive advantage in the region. Because if we save our 2 shillings and say we are not going to spend, our dinner will be taken by our neighbors. Tanzania will eat our dinner while we sleep, dither, or while we are quarreling, because we have a very robust political system here. While we are quarreling, other countries will be developing. So we need to be very, very careful that we do not throw our baby out with the bathwater. If you think about food security and the climate change which is going on, Africa, which has been lagging behind, or so to speak, lagging behind, is the biggest continent in the world. The map you see today, the map of the world, is not a true reflection of the size of Africa. If the true size of Africa was known, I think many people would be very, very scared. Inside Africa, you can fit China, you can fit India, you can fit the United States, all of it, and you can fit Western Europe and a couple of other countries inside Africa alone. That is how big Africa is. And I want to encourage all of you to just Google true size of Africa, wherever you're sitting at some point, true size of Africa. Africa is the richest and biggest continent in this world. Part of the controls which are given to Africans to keep us thinking we're small and poor is the world representation of the map, where you find a country like the US looking like it's the size of Africa. You find China looking like it's the size of Africa. Nothing could be further from the truth. We have 60% of the world's remaining arable land. We have 2 of the 3 biggest rivers in this world. What we need to do is to figure out how to convert our idle capacity to production. And we have to do this in a hostile environment because the rest of the world does not want us to wake up. The rest of the world needs Africa to continue sleeping so that they can continue extracting goods and Africa's wealth, as has been happening for the last few decades, maybe even a century or more. Some would say even 500 years or more, going back all the way to slavery in the 15th century. So Africans, we have a challenge. We need to realize and recognize where we are in this world, what is our position, what our true position is in the world, and what the dangers are that have kept us and which keep us in bondage, whether it is mental bondage, financial bondage, or political bondage. And eventually we should be able to come up and get to some freedom. International trade opportunities, shifting jobs to Kenya. And like I mentioned earlier, we cannot avoid ICT and creating of infrastructure. There is no choice. We have no choice. So in short, this is what we're trying to do here: job creation and industrialization strategy. We want to grow critical sectors: tea, flowers, coffee, horticulture, tourism, for example. We want to leverage natural advantages, textiles and cotton for our arid and semi-arid areas, leather, arid and semi-arid areas, which is 60 or 70% of Kenya. Agro-processing, we need to make our people learn that you don't just have to take milk to the cooperative. If you're in Nyandarua, if you're in a high milk yielding area, you can also produce cheese. You can also add value to your milk products and begin a small cheese plant, a small value added plant there in your home, right there. We have beef, we have fishing. 3, we want to build local industry to support resource and infrastructure investments. Oil and gas, of course. We all know about the oil finds we found in northern Kenya. The jury is still out on how best to extract that value. And on oil and gas, I need to mention that while we are in East Africa, in Kenya, and in Uganda, and in other places, finding oil, the rest of the developed world is now moving away from oil. The oil has already made them rich. They've moved away from it, and they're now going to clean and renewable energy. From the year 2030 going forward, you will not be able to buy an internal combustion petrol or diesel-powered vehicle in Europe. Okay, not all of Europe. Let's use the United Kingdom, for example. They are phasing out petrol and diesel-powered vehicles by 2030, and they're going green. In the last 5 years, you're all aware that the biggest and richest and best capitalized motor company, car-making company, is called Tesla. Tesla did not exist 10 years ago, pretty much, not as a well-known car manufacturer. It didn't exist. Even 5 years ago, Tesla was a niche product, which is bought by geeks. Today, Tesla is the most valuable motor company. 5 years. It has overtaken Daimler Mercedes-Benz, who have been producing vehicles from 1885. It has overtaken Ford Motor Company, which has been producing vehicles from 1900. It has overtaken all the established motor vehicle companies, which have been producing vehicles for more than 100 years in just 5 years. And that is what is going to happen and keep happening. We are going to get broadsided and blindsided by technology, disruption, and innovation across all sectors. Just yesterday, I was giving a talk to ISPAC. They're having the annual conference in Mombasa on the topic of disruption. And we're discussing disruptions in the professional sphere. And it was my sad duty to say, as a lawyer, that today there are artificial intelligence algorithms which can do a better job than I can advising you on a legal matter. A computer program today is able to crunch millions of cases, crunch millions of databases, of data records in databases, compare findings of judgments and rulings across all sorts of jurisdictions, and then produce to me an argument which it would have taken me a week working nonstop and working very efficiently to produce. It will give that to me in 3 minutes. So the legal profession is going to get disrupted very soon. I had to tell the accountants to prepare for disruption as well. The moment somebody comes up with an automated process which you can manipulate on a mobile phone, that profession is finished the way it is right now. And this applies to all our professions. Even in teaching, we are seeing now that you don't have to have students coming to sit in a class. It's good to call them once in a week or once a month to make sure that everyone is still alive. But literally, you can run entire academic courses without having met the student at all. And this is the future, and we have to live with it and work around it rather than fight it or resist it. We want to transform government industry. Pan paper mills, all these parastatals which suck government money, we're trying to see whether we can consolidate them and make sure that we create efficiency and deal with the old inefficiencies of the past. Number 5, we want to enhance non-industrial job creating sectors. ICT is one of them. ICT is good because it can, considering about 60 to 70% of Kenya's population is 35 and below. It will be very, very important to make sure that we have a very, very strong IT involvement in this country. Retail and wholesale trade, and of course, tourism. And then at the bottom there, you can see improving the ease of doing business, enablers. I talked about infrastructure, ports, roads, bridges, etc. Supporting sectors for growth, skills development, kazi kwa vijana, infrastructure, and incentives for foreign investors. Number 8, want to unlock the potential of SMEs. I've talked about Kariobangi light industries, for example, and Gikomba and other light industry areas all over the country. These light industries need to be supported with incubation, with mentorship, and even with affiliation with Big Brother. For example, Mabati rolling mills can decide, for example, yes, we are big, we serve the big corporate clients, but we also have CSR, and our CSR can be to help the MSMEs in our industry to improve their processes and to learn how to produce better. Not because they will then compete with us, but because when we are all doing well, we are all doing well. And there's no point doing well alone in one corner, and 99% of the people are hungry in another corner. You will not have peace. So we have peace when everybody has food in their belly, everybody has work to do every morning, and everybody is well occupied. That's when we are all safe and happy. And then we want to develop a compelling FDI attraction plan, compelling, because we need to look at whether just having SEZs is enough. We have had the special economic zones for many years. What return have they given? So we are looking and interrogating all these old assumptions to see whether they still hold a sway today. And then we want to build a strong government delivery capability. Okay, as I move towards the end of my presentation, we can increase our GDP by up to 1 billion just by increasing broadband penetration and internet to 50%. That is a fact. All the countries which have a high internet penetration and good broadband necessarily indicate high levels of economic performance. Why? Because people and businesses are able to connect easier. You're able to know prices faster. You're able to determine prices faster. You can enter contracts quicker. You can get paid quicker. You can estimate your profit quicker. So generally, IT is a huge enabler, which facilitates all of us in everything we're doing wherever we are. I'll just mention in passing a country like Singapore. We are all familiar with Singapore. There's a huge debate going on in the world right now, and maybe a university is a good place to throw this one. Do you really expect to have a lot of democracy together with a lot of development? Can you have high levels of development with high levels of democracy? And what are the prerequisites for each? A country like Singapore has not been a democracy. It has been a benevolent dictatorship. And that is how it explains how it moved from being a little backwater in 1965 to what it is today. There's an argument that needs to be made there, and it needs to be made courageously. Let us interrogate intellectually the link between development and democracy. Look at another country called Dubai, United Arab Emirates. In 1977, barely 40 years ago, Dubai looked like maybe what Lamu looks like today. Small, little port, small, little village type, small, little rural seaside town. You go there today And you have to ask yourself whether this is really humanly possible in only 40 years. And the answer is yes. If you look at Dubai, are they a democracy? And United Arab Emirates? No, those are monarchies. So there's some Kool-Aid we've been drinking for many years in the enlightened and liberalized Western way of thinking, that you must have democracy this way and that way. Let's come closer to Africa. Let's go to Rwanda. Look at what His Excellency Paul Kagame has done with that country. You can argue whether a country like Rwanda needs more democracy or more development. I think let them determine their own fate. They know what they went through. We were here barely 2 hours away, and few of us even knew what horrors were going on in Rwanda in 1994. So they have found their own way. And I think we need to be careful before we criticize whatever is happening there, because what you can see with your eyes and what you can experience when you go to Rwanda is that you're in the cleanest African city, you're in the cleanest African country, you're in the safest African country, and you are seeing development which is unbelievable comparatively. And if you want to do a case study for those of us who may be wondering what PhD topic to go into, do a case study, compare Rwanda and compare Burundi. Identical countries, pretty much in size, in demography, in everything, identical. And then develop your own hypothesis on what leadership does and the difference. Let's move on. Government is trying to do one-stop shop through eCitizen, and the hope is to bundle all possible government services, both at national government and at county government, into an eCitizen platform. So that any citizen, wherever you are, you need a service from any part of government, all you have to do is have internet access, which will be cheaper than taking a matatu or a bus or walking or driving. From the comfort and safety of your phone, you should be able to access all government services at the cost of your internet connection. And then we also want to seriously now look at the missing question: how to join the small, micro and small medium enterprise (MSMEs) to big industry. That missing gap there, the silver bullet I was talking about. So we have an incubation support program to promote technological upgrading, capacity building, international standards, and quality. Because even if you want to buy Kenya and build Kenya, you're not going to wear a shirt which doesn't look good because you're trying to buy Kenya to build Kenya. Tumezoea mtumba, we're used to good quality from abroad. So we have no choice but to upskill our small business people, our small enterprises, our small industrialists to come very near to the high international qualities that we are already used to. And it is a good thing to aspire for higher qualities. And as I conclude, I think I've got to my allotted time, if I'm not very wrong. The paradox with industrialization is that resources such as fossil fuels become more efficient. The demand for the resources increases because they lower the cost of using the resources and the services provided. By the time we are commercially extracting oil from Turkana and Lokichar, in the next 10 years, the developed world will be moving away from fossil fuels to clean energy, wind and electricity, wind and solar. But because we cannot ignore our oil, maybe as a country, what we need to be doing is developing a refinery in Turkana, not in Mombasa. We develop a refinery in Turkana and develop our oil products, because we will continue driving our tractors. So it'll be a long time before we have electric tractors. We'll continue driving our heavy lorries to move our goods. We'll continue having need for fossil fuels. But at the same time, we need to recognize and realize that the world has gone clean, and the world is going clean for good reasons. So we also need to double, triple, and quadruple our efforts in clean and renewable energy. We need to revamp the way we look at solar power. We live in a country where we have 365 days of sunshine. Even on the day it rains, the sun comes out. We have 365 days of sunshine. Solar should be compulsory pretty much for all of us. And this is already happening in the rules and regulations for building. All new buildings are required to cater for solar heating and for solar lighting. So these are the sort of things we need to get into. We take stock and we fully leverage what we have in terms of resources, whether it is oil, which is still in the ground in our country, whether it is our wind, whether it is our solar, access to solar, to the sun 365 days a year. We need to leverage on what we have. And as was being described in Glasgow only last week but one, at the COP26 summit, which brought countries and committed industrialized nations to limit and reduce greenhouse gas emissions in accordance with agreed individual targets. Kenya is as Pan-Africanist and as a global citizen as they come. Kenya always is at the forefront of signing up to all progressive initiatives. His Excellency President Kenyatta, as you all know and you can see every day, he is at the forefront. In fact, Kenya in Africa is, I think, one of 2 countries only where, as an African, you're granted a visa on arrival. Why? Because we realize we are integrated to the whole world. We're integrated in Africa and we're integrated to the whole world. And with this sort of forward thinking, Kenya can only go forward, because by the time we are allowing any African citizen with an idea who thinks he can make it in Kenya to come, that person is an immigrant who brings fresh ideas, new ideas, and who is coming to shake up the status quo where we are. And this is what made countries like the US of A great. They were built on immigration, never mind their retrogressive moves recently in some sectors of their politics. But this is what we want to encourage. We are global citizens. We live in a global world. We live in a connected world, and we live in a world driven by information technology, by artificial intelligence, and by algorithms. The future is tech. And we are looking to see looking very much forward to this contribution from this conference, hoping that you can help us as Kenya Vision 2030 to develop answers to some of these difficult questions which we need to answer. They are exciting because it's a good intellectual challenge to figure out what will work best for the greatest number of people. So I'm practical like that. We don't look for perfection. And I keep telling my staff at Kenya Vision 2030, we do not want perfection. Perfect is the enemy of the good. What we want is good. We're looking for the good. What works best for most of the people, most of the time. That is what we're trying to get at. Perfection comes down the road much later. Asanteni sana. Thank you very much for listening to me.